This is indeed a great privilege to be able to speak to the students studying human rights, and particularly at a platform as august as the Human Rights Commission has initiated this. And I'm really, really happy that this is happening. So, what I'll try and do is that discuss my topic on the urban housing for poor in two parts largely. One is that within the overall arching theme of urban housing, I will be taking up the scheme of Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana. ये आगे क्यों slide कर रहा है? Just a moment. I will be taking up this PM Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, and I shall then subsequently speak on ARHC, Affordable Rental Housing Complexes. Thereafter, I will also try and link it how it matters for the human rights as well, because there has to be a very distinct connect, which is certainly there. Thereafter, I shall take up questions with regard to whatever I've spoken, or for that matter, whatever concerns the students who are themselves quite learned at the level of undergraduate, graduate, and postgraduate level. I think it's postgraduate and undergraduates. So I will make it as informal as possible, because I do not want to make people sleep off in the very first session itself, because these affairs can be slightly rule bound and too cumbersome to be carried on in the first meeting itself. So let's take it in a very much like a story format. The right to housing, as we all know, is recognized as an international human right also, and the UN Habitat Agenda also imposes a lot of concerns on the issue of housing, how physical access, adequate space, stability, durability, all that is important. It is also one of the very important themes of Sustainable Development Goals. SDG 11 is addressed when we do good housing, also aspects of security, clean water, and all that. So, in a nutshell, it very much comprises and complies with the aspects which have been highlighted in all our international agreements, in anything that concerns with the dignity of a human being. Now, coming to the scheme in proper and trying to jacket it within the overall theme of urbanization, we know that we have made rapid strides in urbanization, and over a period, as this graph will show, that from 23% we have practically come to 31% now in 2011, and we have good reasons to believe that we would be around 40% of India would be staying in the cities by 2030, and about 50% by 2050. Urbanization, we are in very ancient civilization, and we of course did have the Harappan civilization, where planning was very intricate to our development, because but as we developed over a period of time, there was this situation that the villages developed, and the village economy did a lot of there was a tremendous emphasis on village level economy, and India was surviving in the rural villages. But ever after industrialization, rapid growth, and modernization took over, there was a growth of at an unprecedented scale, because apart from the mega cities, we did not have very many yet. But in the past 20, 25 years, we see that the pace has been very rapid on account of the growth of service industry, on account of liberalization, and also in the post-liberalization, when all these things established, India became an industrial and IT superpower, and obviously a lot of education brought in a lot of people out from the rural sector economy, and they came to contribute in the growth of the country, and also to look for employment. So there was a mass shift of people from rural areas to urban areas, and we have got a lot of data where, according to the census, this will grow to about 60 crores by 2030, when Indians would be staying there. So in order to cater to the housing shortage, because when people shift out to the cities, there is a demand which is created, and not everybody can afford a house because housing is costly. Housing, somebody may have a home back in the village and is unable to fund it here. Therefore, in 2014, the Honorable Prime Minister made an announcement on the Housing for All scheme. This scheme began in 2015 June, and the overall objective of this scheme was to provide affordable housing to every eligible Indian. Who was an eligible Indian? An eligible Indian was one who did not have a pakka house in any city, which meant that if you had a kacha house back in the village, you were still eligible, and your annual household income should be under 3 lakh rupee was the uh, a basic eligibility criteria. Apart from that, the scheme wanted to create no bureaucracy, no papers were required to the extent of proving one's income, and an affidavit was considered enough to lodge your claim for getting in the PMAY house. Thereafter, of course, the municipal authorities in the urban local bodies did a demand survey. Suppose there is a particular area in the city of Lucknow, then that area will have a demand. This demand will be accrued from the people, those who have applied, or even those who have not applied and they come within the demand survey done by the local officials. They become a part of the demand survey strategy. This demand, therefore, is then brought to the urban local body level, and we see if there is land available, if there are people who want to make house on their own piece of land. If they do not have land, then the land is provided by the government. If there are people, those who earn enough and want to avail some other vertical, that provision is there. And there was slums finally. This got the attention that four types of housing was therefore planned instead of a vertical approach of just one type of scheme in the form of the earlier scheme of Jawaharlal Nehru Urban Mission, where the concentration was largely on the slums. We moved out from the slums. Of course, slums was an extremely important input, but the beneficiary linked contribution, the BLC houses, was given priority because a lot of people had their own land. The affordable housing in partnership was the second vertical, where people were encouraged to have a house in a multiple structure, where the urban local body, the development authority, or the concerned town area made a building of G+8 or G+4, and the people within the vicinity could then avail their house if they did not have one. The credit link subsidy, which is extremely popular scheme in the big mega cities, is where the state does not have a very direct role. It acts as a facilitator. It is essentially between the banker, builder, and the beneficiary. A beneficiary once applies for a home loan of his own choice anywhere in the city is able to get interest subvention of about 2.5 lakh rupee on an average if all the conditions are met and the diligence is done by the banks, and if one is found eligible, then this is given out to them. And the ISSR, as I told you, was in situ slum redevelopment projects, in which 1 lakh rupee was being given, because the assumption is that it was to be done along with the private sector, along with other bodies, entities who could then monetize on the land area, and other facilities like FAR, FSI relief was given by the state governments. So these were the four verticals, and uh, I want to bring this out to the people here that in comparison to the earlier schemes, why this looks to be a greater success and why it was found very comfortable for the people is that as per our social fabric in India, you had a choice. If you wanted to buy one own flat in a city like Gurgaon, you could avail CLSS. You did not have land and you were in a smaller city, you had land, then you would go for a BLC. If you did not have land, suppose you stayed in Gujarat somewhere, you will apply for the AHP vertical. And ISSR, of course, was the slum rehabilitation, where it was considered to be an in situ settlement strategy where people would then stay. So these were the four verticals. All the towns and notified town areas were taken, and we have currently about 4,427 cities which are covered by the PMAY. All statutory towns were there. Also, areas which were subsequently earmarked. Suppose you have an industrial area and that's marked for urban development, we have no problem. Suppose there is a village which is gradually becoming a city in structure, the state government is perfectly empowered to go ahead on that. So that this is a very important input. I'll come to the next. This, the demand strategy was once formulated. The overall demand of the housing was about 1.12 crore. This is, I must say, that this is a dynamic demand because that has kept pace, and somebody who's 18 today or 17 may become a part of the demand a little later. So this is dynamic that way, but more or less the states froze on 1.12 crore. Uh, you'll be happy to note that out of this 1.12 crore, we have been able to sanction 1.08 crore. So quite close to the overall demand that we had of 1.12 crore. Very happy to share that out of this, 67 lakh houses have been grounded. Somebody may think that why is there a change between sanction and grounded? That is generally because it takes some time for the government authorities to move papers where environmental clearance, fire clearance, road planning, funding, finding out the beneficiary contribution, all that is straightened out. So this generally takes about 6 months time. The larger the project, there will be more compliances to be done because everything has to be ensured that the soil testing has been done, that the load factor has been checked out, uh, necessary compliance of fire, forest, other hazards have been taken care, where the vulnerability has been planned out, the disaster management plan is there, whether the house, the structural design is as per the seismicity and other concerns like whether it is in the coastal area. So have you planned it that way? So these things do take time. 38 lakh houses have been completed nearly, and very happy to share that about the same number of people have actually occupied these houses also. I would delve into the technology aspect a little later, but just to say that out of this 67 lakh, about 15 lakh houses are from within the new technologies, as we call it. It is also innovative technology, alternatively speaking, because a new needs to be defined then. So we call it innovative technology. And Mm, I'll come to the budgetary portion a little later, but how we have done it. But just to give you a snapshot, 76,000 crore has been released by the central government. Almost equal amount has been released by the state government also, around close to 80,000 crore. So that makes about 1.5 lakh crore, and a huge amount of investment have been made by the people of this country in order to realize the dream of a house of one's own. So this has been a scheme which has not only brought in people of three kinds, that is the government, the state government, and the beneficiaries themselves, but also as an investment destination. Where in order to make a house, this has become a spinner for economic growth also, because it propels investments, it propels buying, it propels industrial production to a great extent. The PMAY house, the social outcomes, as I told you, and I linked it with the urban agenda, also the human rights. The basic fact is that all these houses necessarily must have toilet, kitchen, electricity connection, and water connection. We have also ensured that when we talk about women, we mean it totally, and we have ensured that the houses are either in the name of the women or a joint property. It cannot be a property owned by the male member himself. It can only be owned if the man has probably preferred not to get married, or probably doesn't, or the wife is not there, divorced or something, or probably dead. So, that being the situation, the empowerment of women has been ensured to almost like 75% close to them is for the women member. The better quality of urban life in terms of planning structures, in terms of other facilities, in terms of amenities. has been ensured. Security of tenure is extremely important because once you get the house on your own name, the kind of security one gets is also unimaginable. Adequate physical and social infrastructure is provided in terms of crèche, in terms of ramp for the physically challenged people, in terms of other nuances in planning, suppose for the aesthetics, movement of aeration, facilities like lift wherever required, in order to make the living very, very proper in terms of greening of the project. We brought about a special program, Angikar, where we brought in all aspects of urban planning, including the other departments. I think that will be covered as we go along. So as I told you, the overall investment center, state and the beneficiary put together comes to about 6.5 lakh crore. And of this, almost like central assistance is 1/4, state is 1/4, and the beneficiaries. It also promotes a large amount of employment in terms of job creation of 1.3 crore, 1.93 crore jobs in terms of movement in cement and steel industries. But these are the figures, and they may, of course, be there. There could be some correction here and there, but this is how we've arrived at figure. So it promotes employment, it promotes industrial production, it promotes a large amount of economic activity in the terms of backward and forward linkage, whether it is the paint industry or the chemical industry or sand, whether it is fixtures in the toilet, fixtures in the rooms, tiles, so on and so forth, furniture, etc. So there is a lot of economic activity that happens around housing, and cannot be seen in isolation as being just one program. I'll now delve into the credit link subsidy scheme. This is again, as I told you, the between the banker, beneficiary, and the uh, the builder. You have a house, a builder makes a house, say, for example, 20 lakh worth rupee. The man goes, gets a housing loan, and then later on applies for a credit link subsidy in subvention. This is just not 2.5 lakh, only when the first home loan account is drawn out. But over a 20-year period, this becomes the benefit goes to as high as 6 lakh rupees because of the adjustment of inflation, and also if this money was not paid, how would you be paying? The manner of paying back makes it possible that this figure goes even higher. Uh, so far, we've done about 12 lakh houses in credit link subsidy, and the investment in this on behalf of the central government itself is about 28,000 crores. These houses invariably are more than 10 lakhs, and this is for mega cities. They've fared very well in the states of Gujarat, Maharashtra, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, parts of Madhya Pradesh, and also Uttar Pradesh. Uh, Certain segment has been there in every state. There is absolutely no iota of doubt that this has been received very well in almost all the states. But generally speaking, states which are more urbanized tend to get more benefits of the under the CLSS. So this is an ongoing scheme, and the Honorable Prime Minister announced the extension of the scheme very recently when the demonetization, and later on also this has been increased year on year. So the MIG is almost as large as 200 square meters flat that could be bought in mega cities, and the income limit was raised to about 18 lakhs an annum. So in the MIG you have 18 lakhs, in the EWS and LIG you have 6 and 12 lakhs respectively. In order to address the grievance of people not getting to know where this is, and in order to not to harass them, so that people just move out without information, a portal by the name of CLAP was inaugurated, CLSS Awas portal. Uh, this is to make the beneficiary or somebody who is asked for the loan to know where his application is, what the status is. They can log on with their own ID number and can see when the pendency is. This generally takes some time because there are grievances there. We try to address them as soon as possible, but as I told you, the offtake of this scheme has been very, very high, and we often have to arrange for continued source of funding, which has never been a problem, but it does take a process approach, and FIFO is applied first in, first out, and therefore there is a queuing up of cases which are then dealt with. This has been really received well by the people, because CLSS Awas portal has made it possible for the beneficiary, banker, builder, and the government to interact in a portal where these things are taken care of. The PMAY, if I'll say like what is the basic feature of the PMAY in terms of accountability systems, then entire program is web enabled. Each and every house is digitized, and we have geotagged images of the BLC component and the AHP. So you cannot just have a situation that somebody got money or somebody was in the list and they do not make a house. A physical structure has to be created, and not once. We take it in 5 distinct phases. So every house is geotagged by a surveyor, and release of subsequent installments of first and second and third are only done once this has been achieved. So beneficiary database is digitized, so there is no possibility of somebody taking multiple houses. If somebody is taking it, they will be caught sooner or later. And we have had cases when some tweaking was done on account of name or Aadhaar card, but we have been able to track them, and the law is taking its own course. The payments are done with the DBT mechanism, where the beneficiaries are given money in the BLC particular and the CLSS. The money goes directly into their bank account, so there is no case of pilferage or harassment at any level. It is a process-driven approach. You cannot jump processes. Only if you are there in the list can you become a demand. So it is not as if that a name can be cut down, because it's all linked from the center to the state to the municipal corporation and to the urban local body, and then to the beneficiary level. So anybody who has a house can just log on to his number and get to know what the status is, when the demand was released, those kind of things. So if somebody is not there, one just cannot jump the gun and bribe somebody and get a house. You are either there or you're not there. So that's there because it's all Aadhaar enabled. And we have frequent checks to look at the quality of the house, whether through third-party assessment or through the SLTCs, the state level technical cells and the city level technical cells, where specialists and experts who are appointed by the state government and funded by the central government in a major way are able to go and see projects in terms of its quality, in terms of satisfaction, in terms of social audit of how the it's been received and how people like it. This is a snapshot of Northeast and the hilly states, where we've done 100 out of the 3 lakh houses. Other than the Northeast is 103 lakh houses. In the Northeast and the hilly states, we have about 5 lakh houses. Almost all states have participated. Jammu and Kashmir, the Union Territories, also have a component of 55,000 houses where they've taken. Delhi has taken houses under the credit-linked subsidy subvention only, and they have not been able to avail the ISSR. But we are looking at a situation where they will be able to take. Northeast has participated very well, and amongst the Northeast, Assam and Tripura are states which have done very well in terms of numbers, and Uttarakhand is also there. We'll be uploading the PPT later on also for anybody who's interested in getting into the details. I'll just delve briefly on technology, because technology, given the fact that there is a scheme, there is land, there is sourcing, but there is a possibility that these things are delayed. Therefore, we introduced the new technology aspect, where innovative technologies were promoted. 33 new emerging technologies were identified, out of which many technologies were then the schedule of rates from the PWD came about. And as I told you earlier, 15 lakh houses are now being made. We also did a global housing challenge where the Honorable Prime Minister graced the occasion in 1919-20 in the construction technology year. And 54 new technologies were identified, and incubation centers and memorandum of agreements were signed for the 6 lighthouse projects. These projects are now ready, and we are waiting for a post-COVID world when these lighthouse projects will be seen by the world. and the academia, anybody interested, the urban local body officials, the engineers, the political representatives, everybody will get to see these houses where new technologies were brought in under the Global Housing Challenge. And through a challenge process, the states then participated. So this has been a huge winner because it is not only for PMAY that the technologies exist, but for others also. And there is a special body by the name of BMTPC, which looks after the promotion of new technology. Subsequently, we realized that you need to have a knowledge base amongst the professionals also. We started a vulnerability atlas course with the School of Planning and Architecture and BMTPC together, and this has been received very well. In fact, I'd advise that people, those who are interested in learning about the vulnerability aspect in construction technology on account of geoclimatic conditions or account of seismicity, so on and so forth, can very well do this, and it's quite cheaply laid out, and it's an online course. So that is something there. Navreet is a course which is waiting in the wings, and we'll be shortly inaugurating it. These are against the new technologies which have come here in this country after the Global Housing Challenge. So this is quite exciting, and I'm very happy to say that the private sector has benefited hugely from the Global Housing Technology Challenge, and a large number of houses in states like Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, Maharashtra are being made with innovative technologies which are cost efficient, which are time efficient, which are green, sustainable, and ensure that this is done at a much faster pace. So once it is done at a faster pace, it ensures that you save money also, because money in the banking system becomes more and more scarce. And therefore, the speed really matters because you accrue a lot of interest in case of delays. The lighthouse projects, as I told you, are iconic structures, and which is why we call them lighthouse. They're in Lucknow, Rajkot, Indore, so on and so forth, Ranchi, and these will be inaugurated sometime very soon, as soon as we are in a position to do it on account of COVID, etc. And these will be displayed to the whole country, and we will be making time-lapse videos, and we'll be going out through a mass campaign to encourage people to look at technology in a new manner rather than keep making houses in the old traditional way. A very recent intervention, a mammoth one, is the affordable renting housing complex, where the migrant laborers, as we saw it in the COVID times, that a large number of migration was there and people had to shift out. We came out with an affordable rental housing complex scheme, which is a sub scheme of the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, where we are offering large amount of incentives to the people of the state and the private entity in terms of FAR, FSI, in terms of technology innovation grant, which is there, in terms of rebate and on the income tax, on the GST, and many other taxation considerations, which will make it very, very attractive for the private investor, particularly because municipal charges will also be on residential rates. So these will make it possible for the private sector as well as the public sector to make special housing available for the migrant laborers. We have defined this category as being very broad. So students, salespersons, people working in industries, people working in health industry, everybody can then participate in this scheme. And within an existing complex also, one can make an ARHC complex and can give their manpower much better accommodation, and also this will save time and cost in terms of people traveling long distances to reach their units every day. So this will be close to their workplace. This has been received very well. It is in its earlier baby steps, and in the coming months and the years, we will see this to be a huge success, and also will lead to less and less slums being created, because these slums are only created because we did not have adequate policy and housing options open for the people. This will also be tied to the banks, where the bankers will be able to give houses to them. And interestingly, this is a marked shift from the earlier strategy of last 70 years, when housing in public sector was only through the public agencies or the government. This is for the first time we are saying that ownership housing will not be there. It is a rental housing. So people will now be encouraged to go in for rental housing also, because not everybody wants to always purchase a house on account of movement over a period. Coming back to Angikar, as I told you, it is not only sufficient to give a house, but we were quite keen that other goodies of the government also reach out to the people, and therefore we encouraged water conservation, Ujala program, cylinder, tree plantation, Eat Right campaign, Fit India campaign, which is going on now. We could reach out to about 20 lakh beneficiaries, households in this, which is quantified to more than a crore, looking at the family, and about 20,000 people from the Angikar resource persons who were our surveyors and civil society organizations. They all work together to make people aware that it's just not one scheme, but a bouquet of schemes which you can get benefited from. Financial literacy was very, very importantly discussed, and sustainable development goals, and the aspects of dignity of women in the overall perspective of human rights was also laid out to the people and the women in particular. All this happens through our apps also, and there are a large number of apps. I would like you to look at our Facebook page, to also look at our website and suggest if there is something more that we can do. It is largely interactive. The website on the ARS is also, and anybody can log on and get information from a very, very open system of providing information. I'll just give you a snapshot of some houses here. This is Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh. You can see how new technology and innovative technology has brought about a difference in the kind of housing this is all done. Then Chhattisgarh, Gujarat. It's a beautiful housing structure. This is amazing houses in Arunachal, Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, Karnataka, Kerala, Odisha, Maharashtra, Manipur, Meghalaya, Tripura, Uttar Pradesh. So that's some of it, and I think I will now like to discuss if there are any questions on Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, and from then on we will take on anything if there's anything else.
Very good morning, sir, Mr. Shirajit Dey. So it's a very wonderful presentation on the various facets of Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana. I have one question. Many a times the commission is receiving complaints that the central government component has been paid, but the state government's sharing portion has not been paid. Secondly, they are also complaining regarding the land dispute. Someone is claiming to be the landowner. Now, once the sanction has been done by this district administration, then the adjacent person is raising a civil dispute. So we are receiving extensive complaints, and normally we are referring to the respective district collector to get a response. So if you kindly enlighten us on that aspect.
That's a good question. See, a release, obviously the state government has to do it, and we invariably, the finance division within this ministry insists that we release the second installment only after the state has also released. But there are problems of state governments doing it a little later. But now we are insisting on equal share being loaded on from the central and the state government side. So we are now ensuring that this is being done. In cases where this is not being done, we pursue the states to release it as soon as possible. And I quite realize that if these two things do not go together, the delays will be there, because it's not only that the central government's release will be done. In fact, we have stopped a large number of states grants going from the center. But in the overall interest of the speed of the scheme also, we have given it to them. In fact, we've told that just in case A project or a B project is moving faster than the C, you can also transfer it to the other project for speed and pace, but definitely ensure that the state governments also put in their bit of the contribution. Insofar as land dispute is concerned, you are aware that housing is a state subject, and there are problems of land disputes which occur. So while approving the PMAY projects at the state level and the central level, we do try to ensure to a great extent it's done. But you see, in a crore house and BLC beneficial link contribution being almost close to 60 lakh houses, these things will arise, but we will have sensitized the collectors. But good that you brought it to our knowledge. I think we will reiterate that these must be dealt on priority, and willy-nilly decisions must be taken as soon as possible. Thank you. Any more questions?
So I had a question. So I was reading about the requirements for the eligibility for the scheme, the eligibility criteria, and criteria that said that the beneficiary should not have any dwelling unit on the name of any family member. I was wondering if that particular eligibility criteria would apply to a person who's been abandoned by the family. How would the eligibility criteria's application operate in terms of, say, vulnerable groups like the LGBT community or the transgenders who've been abandoned by their family? So would the eligibility criteria apply to them as well?
This is indeed a very interesting question, because this probably has never come to us. But all that I can say is that either the abandonment has to be legally established, but if the child is or the person has attained the age of 18, in any case post 18, we recognize him as an independent adult, and whether the person is from LGBT community or transgender or just a single man or a woman, we have absolutely no problems. We recognize the age 18 as being the cutoff when a person is able to see himself as an individual in their own right and eligible separately as distinct from the family they may be coming from.
Thank you, sir.
Good morning, sir. I am Assistant Registrar Law in the Commission. I have a small question, sir. In Tamil Nadu, when we visited this particular programs, the flagship programs of Government of India, etc., one of the flagship program is PMAY. We found that when a person who is eligible, he has been, this approved project is approved, but he is to start when he has to start of his own, and the money comes at the particular stages of the construction, and they are not able to start. This is one problem. Second thing is, many a time the cost of the construction increases. For example, the area where we had gone in was that the sand prices has gone a lot. I mean, to many times, and they were not able to complete the projects. And the third thing was that the toilets, of course, in South India, they don't make inside, they made it outside and at a far up place, and they were not being used, sir. So what the ministry or this particular project people who are responsible for that are doing this?
See, in terms of the insistence by the government for the beneficiary to start the construction first, this was a situation which was becoming a problem in the scheme, and state governments like Uttar Pradesh then went forward and started giving out the first installment as an advance, and with this money they could then begin their houses. In Tamil Nadu also, I think the advance for BLC is given out, but that situation looks to have been addressed, because I can quite appreciate that it becomes a big problem for somebody to start, not because one doesn't have money, but also because one is not too sure whether the government money will really be coming. So more surety means, so they wait for the government funding. So this has largely been addressed. The cost of the construction, yes, they may increase over a period, but the central government says that it's a participative scheme. 1.5 lakh is what we are giving. And particularly for a state like Tamil Nadu, the state government also is assisting in a big way. Cost of construction has varied. Perhaps maybe in 2022, when this part of the PMAY is over, there may be a consideration. But at the moment, the scheme is on because that consideration is not there. Toilets in Tamil Nadu and overall in India also are being used in a big way. I am aware that certain toilets in certain AHP projects are being made, and it is indeed surprising that even in a state like Tamil Nadu, they are not being used. So we will take it up with them, because one can see that this is happening in maybe other parts of the country where the development is not as much as in Tamil Nadu. Which place was this in Tamil Nadu where toilets were not being used?
Sir, it was two districts. We had gone to this. One is was near Ramanathapuram, and other was that no that this particular district where there is a cracker factories. I mean, I'm forgetting the name. We have a report on that.
Okay.
If
I would
we
love
can
to get
forward
a
the
copy
report.
of it. Absolutely. I'd
Yes,
love
sir,
to get
we
a
can
copy
forward.
of it, and we will encourage the residents there, along with the state government, to not only use toilets but to realize the benefit that there's a whole campaign around it, and it's something that the nation has really been fighting in the Swachh Bharat mission, and we will promote it positively.
Yes, sir, we'll send forward.
Thank you.
Good morning, sir. I had a question.
Yeah.
Sir, does the ministry play a role in ensuring that there are facilities like a hospital or a general store or schools around these housing facilities that are made for people of the lower income group?
When the scheme is approved, suppose somebody is getting a house done in a city, within the overall development plan, the what we call a HFA POA, Housing for All Plan of Action, we do ensure that these facilities are there. And when the state government actually approves these projects, they ensure that not only budgetary funding but overall infrastructure in terms of crèche, Anganwadi, PHC or a CHC, as the case may be, are there. Having said that, uh, I would believe that a large amount of work is still going on in the NHM also, National Health Mission, and the social sectors. We have responded to the Social Justice and Empowerment Ministry through the Angikar, where we've told that in the Anganwadi centers need necessarily be there in AHP structures also, or at least in the close vicinity in the urban, sphere, urban Anganwadi centers need to be there. And if it is not there, we would love to get it done. So we ensure that that aspect of planning is met.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, I have a question here.
Yeah.
Why don't you turn on your video? The student who wish to put up any question, please turn on your video and then ask the question.
Good morning, sir.
Yes,
Sir,
Abhijat.
could you please,
Okay.
sir,
Okay.
sir,
Let's
could
have
you please
Tuba
enlighten?
first. Let's have Tuba first. Yes, Tuba. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. With the increase in the demand for because of any of the reason like population or migration, how the project is trying to maintain the balance between demand and supply.
Can you come again?
So with the increase in the demand, either because of the population or because of the migration, how the project is trying to maintain the balance between the demand and supply chain, sir?
Yeah, see, the demand is being met through the demand strategy itself, as in that the urban local body has been empowered to conduct a demand survey. But as I told you, it is a dynamic demand, and more the migration, more the demand would be there. So PMAY, in terms of numbers, if you look at it like between 2004 and 2014, in the 10 years, the ministry did about 12 lakh houses, or out of which about 8.5 lakh houses were completed. Now it's close to 11 lakh. And PMAY, in that sense, has gone to 1 crore in 5 years itself, out of which 38 lakh has been delivered. So the pace is much faster on account of technology, on account of the fact that we've encouraged beneficiary linked contribution within the overall cafeteria approach of getting a house. But no doubt you're right, Fatima, that this demand will keep increasing with the more migrations coming in, more urbanization. This is a bit of a challenge, and we will have to devise more and more strategies to be able to fulfill the housing shortage, and which is why the rental housing model has come up, because there are large number of structures where people have made their own houses or are able to make their own houses but cannot rent it because they did not have a very secure rental regime in which the balance of interest between the rentier and the owner of the property was very clearly established. So affordable rental housing complex is a step in that direction, where we are ensuring this for the migrant workers, the students, and other communities. But very shortly, the ministry is now coming out with a memorandum of a guideline on the rental housing sphere. We are talking to the state governments. Once that is done, there will be a lot of housing space which will be created from within the private sector also. And people like you and me can then open up a hostel of 50 rooms, 100 rooms, and can use it as a viable economic option in a business rather than being in a sphere like today where people fear renting out to people.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, I have a question.
Yes.
Abhishek, just Elizabeth, please wait. Let Abhishek ask his question.
Okay.
Yes, Abhishek, go ahead.
Sir, I have a question. Recently, I had seen in news that displacement of those 40,000 jogis in Delhi, which have spotted nearby the railway tracks from past 50 to 70 years. So how union government is helping them, or how state government is helping them I mean to say, give them a pakka house, or is there any scheme for them? So to give them any relief?
Okay. Good you took this out. This was in the news, and the Railway Ministry has approached us with regard to the directions of the Honorable Supreme Court. We are talking to them. The Delhi government also is speaking to the Railway Ministry. But once they spoke to us, the very short solution that we have worked out is that in Delhi itself, the JNNURM houses, there is about 51,000 houses which are there in various parts of Delhi, which have formerly not been allotted to people. We have offered them as ARHC, affordable rental housing complexes, where they will be housed. And if the Railway Ministry and Delhi government come to an agreement, then the union government, we will be very happy to join forces in making this a workable solution, where these people are then removed under the Supreme Court guidelines to these rental housing complexes, and this can be done in quick time. But obviously, the railways and the Delhi government, they have to come to an agreement that because you cannot squat over the railway land, because it is not something like uh, occupancy of any other land, because railway land and defense land that way is sacrosanct because it's meant for a purpose. So it's not an ordinary slum. So that is which is why the Supreme Court's directions in this regard. Once the Delhi government has frozen this with the railways, we have offered them the facility because Delhi government did partner in the JNURM projects, and we have absolutely no problem as union government in working along with the Delhi government to make this a reality, and we will offer them as ARHC. But the work is in progress, and formally this needs to be established in the due course.
Okay, Elizabeth, now you can go ahead with your question.
Okay, sir. Sir, how is the maintenance work of this project done? House have to do that?
See, the issue of maintenance would primarily come under the affordable housing in partnership with there are multi-story buildings. These are normally after the construction is over, the builder has to exit. This is done to the RWAs. But in terms of beneficial in construction, where somebody is staying in a colony or has his own house, that obviously will need to be done by the person itself. But in a multi-story, I'm sure the RWA and there is a proper mechanism which is there for every other housing complex that is ensured.
Okay, sir, one more question.
Elizabeth, once again.
Elizabeth, you could
once again,
come up with a question once again. Sir was not able to hear it. There were some issues of the sound. So could you please repeat your question, Elizabeth?
Sir, does this project involve renovation projects?
Okay. Yes. Renovation is allowed to the extent that we call it BLC enhancement. Suppose you have a one-room structure, you want to make another room also, that is allowed, but it is allowed only under the condition that the construction should at least be 9 square meter, and we do not fund separately for toilet or kitchen, because this is a housing scheme, and toilet and kitchen can be subsequently added along with the room, but cannot be done singly. So that is allowed, yes. But renovation is not allowed per se, because if we add aspects of renovation also, how does the MIS manage whether renovation was done, whether the extent, and that will be a little too much for us to manage. I think Housing for All itself is a mammoth mission, and perhaps one of the largest schemes in the world at the moment in affordable housing.
Yes, sir. Sir, one last question. Sir,
Yeah.
between you told about women empowerment, is the houses registered in the female member's name?
Yeah, it is. We have made it mandatory for the housing to be done either in the name of the women or in the co-ownership. It cannot be only of a male. It can be a male only in the case where the male member doesn't ever marry, or probably there has been an unfortunate demise of the wife. In that, that's the only case. Otherwise, it has to be in the name of the women or has to be co-owned.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, Sudhanshu, you have a question? Sudhanshu? You are muted. Sudhanshu, you are muted. Unmute yourself.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Unmute yourself. And now, yes.
Sir, I am visible now.
Yes, you are visible.
Sir, firstly, sir, good morning, sir.
Yeah,
So
Sudhanshu.
my question to you is, sir, in this Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, sir, the amount is fixed, sir, 2,50,000 is fixed for providing the poor people to making their own house. Sir, but the problem is arising, sir, when they want that amount, sir, firstly, they have to give some amount to some middlemen. Some political parties are taking some bribe and then they are giving that amount to that poor people. So why this type of situation is arising, sir? So my question, how to deal?
That's a good question. Good you asked it. It's like this, that the amount in the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana is 1.5 lakh for BLC and AHP vertical. Under the CLSS, 2.5 lakh is given, which goes directly to the bank. Now, the point of you have raised is about corruption. See, this is indeed a problem of between the ignorance, the social status of the family, between the empowerment and issues of how we've been able to tackle that. We have a very robust mechanism of complaint addressing, and there have been cases where FIRs have been lodged, where even government officers who were found to be privy to such things have been proceeded against, and adequate punishment has been given, or they've been taken out from the mission entirely. But these problems will stay. We have a grievance redressal cell. We get grievances. We attend phone calls. The state government does take initiatives of bogus people promoting PMAY, of certain entities, asking for money. So whenever it comes to the knowledge of the state governments or to the authorities there, we do take note of these, and this is a correction mechanism which we have to do. But as we evolve as a society, I am sure we will perhaps become less and less corrupt as more and more knowledge and is given out to the people.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Now we'll be having the last question. Absolutely the last one. Tanmay, you can go ahead. Thereafter, we have a time constraints. Yes, Tanmay, go ahead.
Thank you, sir, and good morning. I had a question that during these pandemic periods, is the PMIU facing certain fund crunches or certain various problems, and how are you tackling these?
The union government provides us the funding through the Ministry of Finance, and we have a very robust structure of funding. But apart from the budgetary resources, we also get it funded through the EBR arrangement, extra budgetary resources, where we have been allowed to raise money through institutions like HUDCO and all that. But there is no crunch in the sense of funding in PMAY. There are delays and there are conditions which have to be met by the state government. So once that is done, we do ensure that this is done. And I'm quite sure that we would be able to complete the mission in this due time.
Thank you, sir.
Is the work still continuing?
Pardon?
Is the work still continuing in the same
Yeah, absolutely. It is continuing, and there may be cases where there have been delays on account of laborers not being there, on account of work not starting post-COVID. But by and large, the works have begun, particularly in the beneficial link construction. AHP, yes, it is slightly labor-intensive, where large number of laborers. So that has also started, I think, late July, August.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for that wonderful response.